Good afternoon, good day, good evening to everyone who are with us today. Welcome to the online forum on the International Labor Organization High-Level Tripartite Mission to the Philippines. This forum is co-organized by Asia Pacific Coalition for Human Rights in the Philippines, First Union New Zealand, International League for People Struggle Asia Pacific, Philippines-Australia Union Links, and Workins. It is now 3 p.m. here in the Philippines, and we have invited a couple of speakers from the workers' movement in the Philippines to enlighten us regarding the upcoming International Labor Organization High-Level Tripartite Mission. Before we start, first of all, I am Kara Tagawa from Workins, and I will help moderate our forum for today. And we are all excited to hear the sharing from our main speakers. But before that, we have interpreter options for those who need interpretation from Filipino to English to be able to do that. And also, please continue to invite other friends, colleagues who will be able to join us this afternoon, this day. And please share your thoughts with regards to the forum that we will be holding today. And share your thoughts online with using the hashtags investigate PH labor, hashtag stand with workers PH. Thank you very much. And so we would like to begin our forum, and we are excited to hear from our main speakers for today. We have some of the very well-known labor union officers in the Philippines. We have here Elmer Labog, the National Chairperson of Kilusang Mayo Uno, who will share to us the summary report of the ILO of the workers group in the Philippines. And we also have attorneys Jose Sonny Matula, the Federation of Free Workers, and the National President of the Federation of Free Workers, or FFW, Chairperson of Nagkaisa Labor Coalition, who will also present the workers' presentation and recommendations. So first, we have the floor for Mr. Elmer Labog, and then to be followed by Attorney Sonny Matula.
Good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for joining us and giving us this opportunity to discuss with you the upcoming ILO high-level tripartite mission, which is going to start on January 23. That's next week already. So as a matter of preparations, the Secretariat of the Joint Workers Groups have initiated a gathering of the cases and complaints through the island-wide consultations, which had been religiously held in December till January. So there was this Visayas-wide validation schedule. It is followed by the Mindanao-wide one, and the recent one was held here in UP Los Baños in Southern Tagalog to assess and to validate the cases that had been filed with the Freedom of Association of the Committee on of the ILO in Geneva. Or the Committee on the Application of Standards. So from 2019 to the present, the Philippine affiliates of the Council of Global Unions have documented 56 killings of trade unionists, cases of arrests and detention, cases of forced disaffiliation, state interference with the right to self-organization through threats, harassment, and intimidation, cases of red tagging, terrorist tagging, kidnapping, or enforced disappearances, and cases of other anti-union activities. So since 2019, since the 2019 International Labor Conference, there had been an alarming increase of FOA violations. So in the case of the killings of trade unionists, because of their trade union activities is the most extreme form of FOA violation. We are talking here about individuals being killed, families being left behind, terrified and traumatized colleagues having to continue the work left behind by their friends and colleagues. So yesterday, we received some news on the dismissal of AO 35 murder charges against 17 police officers involved in the killing of Manny Asuncion during the Bloody Sunday Massacre last March 7, 2021. Kamani Asuncion was a staunch labor and civic leader. I admired him very deeply. So this morning we had the opportunity to hold our press conference with the presence of Kamani's wife, Lizelle Asuncion, who was with the various leaders of different labor organizations who have held this press conference at the Max Orosa this morning to discuss about the upcoming ILO high-level tripartite mission. So before being gunned down several times by state forces, Kamani's last words were, "Mga tao rin kami. We are also people." This is to stress that the assassination of Manny was really brutally done, and it took so many shots, and he was not given the opportunity to have his day in court. So it's plain and simple murder of the first degree, which has been initiated by 17 police officers. So even the forensic investigation, forensic evidence shows that the murder of Manny have been done after he had suffered a lot of harassment and intimidation. So we strongly condemn this recent decision of the DOJ. We firmly believe that Duterte and the NTF-ELCA and the forces of the state, including those 17 police officers, are the ones accountable for the murder of Manny Asuncion. So justice is so slow for activists, workers, and ordinary citizens. On the other hand, those who are in power, like the son of Justice Secretary Remulla, who's been apprehended for drug pushing, had not stayed in jail for more than 100 days, and that his case was immediately junked and that he was set free by the judge in the lower court of Las Piñas. So in terms of red tagging, the most devastating way of killing freedom of association is through the rampant use of red tagging or terror tagging. Red tagging is the practice of the state in making baseless accusation that specific labor unions and identified union activists are members of the so-called communist terrorist organizations. These accusations are enough for trade union leaders, organizers, or members to be detained and questioned by the military and police. It needs no evidences, just the accusation. So this also creates opportunities for employers as they can rid their workplaces of trade unions they don't like. Workers end up joining only those unions deemed politically safe by the security forces and acceptable by the employers. As a consequence, workers in the Philippines can no longer exercise their internationally recognized right to freedom of association. They are not free to form or join trade unions of their own choosing. Number 3 is in terms of state interference in union affairs. ILO Convention 87 expressly states that public authorities shall refrain from any interference which would restrict this right or impede the lawful exercise thereof. Increasingly, operatives and officials of security forces have resorted to meddling with union affairs. Local unions have been forced or pressured into disaffiliating with red tag federations. Security forces have meddled in certification elections or elections of union officers. Union members have been pressured to resign from their unions. Number 4 is the criminalization of unionization. Criminalization includes the filing of trumped-up criminal charges against trade union activists using baseless search warrants and warrants of arrest in order to carry out arbitrary arrest and indefinite detention. There is also institutional failure when the courts are being used against trade unionists. The Duterte administration has weaponized the law to wield it against organized workers and people, critics and dissenters. I'd like to add the cases of illegal arrest of labor rights advocates and organizers on October 2022. I'm referring to KMU officer, international officer Cara Tagaw and Piston officer Larry Balbuena, who were illegally arrested and detained for trumped-up charges of robbery and direct assault. So Cara is with us this afternoon. On the fifth complaint that we had filed and which will be discussed with the ILO HLTM team is the enforced disappearances and kidnapping. Two KMU members, Elizabeth Loy Magbanwa and Alipio Adorhuat, have been missing since May 3. Magbanwa and Huat were last seen at Barangay Panturin in Valenzuela City after attending a meeting in the said area. They were actively helping the workers on their fights, rights and welfare. According to the daughter of Huat, her father was able to contact her around the third week of May last year and informed her that he and Magbanwa were abducted by elements of the Philippine Navy. Huat declared that Magbanwa was separated from him while he was being held captive in Camp Aguinaldo. Since then, Magbanwa and Huat could not be contacted, and to this day, they have not been surfaced. Just this January 10, 2023, two Cebu-based activists and labor organizers, Dayan Gumanao and Armand Dayoha, were abducted by police personnel at the port of Cebu City. They were brought 42 kilometers north of Cebu City and were left there by their abductors on January 16, 2023. So these cases are a continuing thing, and they are intensifying. And it is for us very important that finally, after 3 years of waiting, the ILO high-level Tripartite mission is coming in to the Philippines for the second time. So we really hope that the resolutions that would come out from this visit and investigations would be most favorable to the workers who've been attacked on all fronts, and that we really hope that this would serve as an important event to assert our right to organize, to bargain collectively, and for the respect of our trade union and human rights. Thank you, and good afternoon, good evening to everybody wherever you are in any part of the world. Maraming salamat po sa inyo lahat.
Thank you, Kabong. Thank you very much for that. And then now we have Attorney Sonny. You may take the floor.
Hi, good day to everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. How are you? I'm Sani Matula, the president of the Federation of Free Workers and the chairperson of the Nagkaisa Labor Coalition. Freedom of association is highly respected in our laws, but in the actual practice, we have a big problem. When we look at the Philippine Constitution, it is mandated that the right of the people, whether employed in the government or in the private sector, to form unions, associations, and societies for purposes not contrary to law shall not be abridged. And our fundamental law also recognize international conventions, international treaties as forming part of the law of the land. And there is now a question on the respect of the Philippines of these international conventions and uh, the compliance concerning the Constitution, particularly the Bill of Rights on Section 8, Article 3, the right to self-organization. Freedom of working people to form their own organizations to protect their rights and interests is fundamental conditions for a prosperous and democratic society. And unfortunately, we have guarantee in the Constitution or in international convention. Unfortunately, freedom of association is also one of the most violated rights that, of course, deprive workers of the means to live dignified and secure lives. For centuries of struggle by the trade union movement has given us many means to protect this important freedom, and the international labor organizations or the United Nations provide us with spaces to post for this respect of labor rights. The trade unions, which we come together in concerted effort in preparation for the International Labor Organization high-level tripartite mission, are looking forward this scheduled visit from January 23 to 27 this year. And as you already have known, this high-level mission was created in the 2019 Committee on Application of Standards meeting, where the committee laid down this recommendation ensuring compliance with international standards in the Philippines. After consulting the social partners, the government, the workers, and the employers, we expect that the process to produce important reforms and new policies that will help improve the respect for the rights of the Filipino workers. Specifically in our sitting now, the trade union are calling on the high-level tripartite mission to, and we urge the administration, the new administration of Ferdinand Marcos Jr. to seriously investigate and to prevent or stop all freedom of association violations. Particular to this is the killings. The Philippines has a law preventing even legal killings, judicial killings. In 2006, it was adopted, the abolition of the death penalty in the Philippines. We would like the mission also to look at the accusation of raid tagging and unlawful arrest of trade union leaders, organizers, and members. And we have concrete suggestions after this high-level mission, and that is for the government to create a mechanism or a channel to ensure the respect of freedom of association and to continuously monitor and implement the recommendation of the high-level mission to prevent future abuses. And we look forward that this mechanism also can ensure that no more trade union leaders no more victims of killings and other violence inflicted against trade union leaders. And this proposal first is we urge the government to create this mechanism, and we call that as the creation of presidential commission on freedom of association, where the social partners have active participations. And in the structure, we are proposing that it should be headed by the President of the Philippines or the Executive Secretary in the absence of the President. And at least in our draft proposal, we have a draft executive order for this, that there should be about 10 cabinet secretaries. So cabinet secretaries, that would include the Department of Labor and Employment as the vice chairperson, the Department of Justice, the Department of National Defense, the Department of Interior and Local Government, and other departments. So other cabinet secretaries should be included in this presidential commission, at least 10 of them. And not only government, we are also proposing that there shall be 5 representatives from the workers group, at least 2 of whom are women, and another 5 members from the employers group, at least 2 of whom also are women. So the executive secretary, and then these 10 cabinet secretaries, so about 21 members commission that would uphold the freedom of association of workers, and to look at the recommendations of the high level mission, and of course to implement and adopt measures to address the issues and concerns being raised by the high level mission. This is to ensure that the recommendations will be implemented by the government. Before, we have high level missions, but after the high level missions, nothing has been done. So we need a mechanism to follow up the recommendations of the ILO high level mission. The reason why we are proposing for this Presidential Commission on Freedom of Association. For the Philippine trade unions, the government, we look at the government to seriously consider the recommendation of the high-level mission. We see that if the government will not be implementing the recommendation, that would be unfavorable to the Philippines in terms probably of economic arrangements. We will be disfavored in the generalized system of preferences under the United States, and the generalized scheme of preferences plus under the European Union. So we are telling government to take this mission and the recommendations seriously. Probably I'm already speaking too long, so I end here. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Kabong, and thank you, Attorney Sani Matula. And thank you again for providing clarity from the Philippines. I'm pretty sure that many of us outside the Philippines, those who are joining us today, joined us today because many things were not yet clear on the matter, and your sharing has made it clear that we need to do what we need to do to help our brothers and sisters in the Philippines to exercise the right to organize and enjoy freedom of association. So for everyone who still have questions on their mind, please you may use the Q&A box or you may use the chat box. So you may send in your questions and we will go through these questions and have time for question and answer towards the end of the program. But for now, let us proceed to the next set of our speakers. Since, as mentioned a while ago, the ILO high-level tripartite mission has been years in the making, and as the previous administration of Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte has delayed the conduct of the mission. And during those many years since 2016, cases of anti-union violence, including murder, harassment, and red tagging against workers have piled up. So we call on our next speakers. We have Marie Engkoy, who is a worker and unionist from the Nexperia Electronics Company, who have directly experienced several forms of harassment and threats to their organizing and union work. And after that, she will be followed by Jacqueline Ruiz, who is a member of Kilusan na Manggagawang Kababaihan, or KMK. KMK joined the subsector of women and different organizations who forms the subsector of women, who also provided and made a brief report of the additional harassment and intimidation and attacks on against the women workers. So please give your full attention for Marie and Jacqueline. Again, we have options for interpretation for those who will need interpretation from Filipino to English. Miss Marie, Miss Jacqueline, Miss Marie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Miss Cara. Good afternoon, everyone, to all the viewers, co-speakers, visitors, listeners, and moderator that build up this program. Maria Engkoy from Women's Committee Chair from Nexperia Workers Union. In behalf of our organization, affiliated with National Federation Labor Union, Kilusang Mayu Uno. We are very thankful for this invitation and opportunity to hear our struggles and experiences with my co-workers and co-union officials and other members of our union who've been through the harassment and intimidation from the National Task Force personnel. This was just started when our union secretary was visited during the ECQ period. During her medication after her breast cancer operation. And the reason why they are visiting is all about the full awareness of our union, because they told that we are under in control of National People's Army organization, and our union dues was used to support the NPA's activity that fights against the ruling of our government. And they told us that we need to disaffiliate our union from Kilusang Mayu Uno. And it was followed also the visitation to our other colleagues and me last April 2021 during Holy Thursday. Two men are riding in a motorcycle without plate number. They are visiting us during ECQ protocol because of the COVID-19 virus that we are facing during the pandemic time. They introduced themselves to us that they are from National Task Force NCR, and the other one showing his ID, introducing that he was the one, a national secretary from National Task Force. And the other one, that is company, no ID at all. Being to respect for them, because They are the public servant from the government. We entertain them during that time, even if there are so many restrictions from the government. It's because they are asking us during that time. We've been also asking them why they are visiting the unionists during the ECQ. And again, they said that their purpose is all about awareness and disaffiliation of our union from Kilusang Mayuuno. Still, same reason that our union dues was used to support the activities of the NPA organization. We are explaining them in a nice way, and we are saying that their accusation is not true, and their perception that they're thinking of about our union is not also true. Our union is almost 40 years, and our purpose is just to help the needs of the workers for a good condition of our work, wage, benefits, and rights for the workers. Because of that incident, we do some blatter in our homeowners association on a guard on duty in our subdivision during that visitation for our security. This was happened not just only once, but for the following day, Good Friday, last April 2021, another visitation was done in our home with a uniform armed men, army, police, accompanied by the president of our homeowners and the barangay representatives from our barangay. Still, same reason, awareness and disaffiliation of our union. And it followed also the visitation of the coordinator of the National Task Force from Region 4A, accompanied again by the Army, Police, and Barangay representative. And they've been saying that they need to know if there are harassment and intimidation happened during the visitation of the NTF. Then we answered them that their visitation in our community with that kind of reason is a kind of harassment and a very big shameful for our family. This is not just one, but up to 8 times that they've been doing, visiting us and my colleagues, co-officials, that even if we are not in our home and we are at work on duty, and one of our family members, sons or daughters that did been entertaining them during their visitation. And the other one that's been very vulnerable was the experience also with our colleagues, our welfare and screening committee chair during the visitation of the NTF LCAC in their home with her younger daughter. When she is visited by the personnel with arm and gun, and not just that, saying this word in front of her daughter, you know what? There are unionists that was being killed. She was afraid and not thinking that this was happen in just like this way. If you are a unionist and you're helping your co-workers for the welfare of the workers, you should be threatened and can lead you to be called out NPA, terrorists that need to be killed. This was a very tragic experience that was also experienced and bring a big trauma to her daughter. Another one vulnerable experience also. That was experienced by our executive vice union president. And he was also visited for how many times in his home with highly positioned personnel from the NTF-LCAC personnel. He was also invited in the office of the barangay in other offices to, to have a conversation all about the agreement that they said that we never know what kind of agreement it is. And the other one, the very drastic, is that this was cause and effect to her work, intimidating, harassing with his wife and his daughter. And also, this was also been experienced to other union members in our organization. Some of them was received a letter of invitation from the barangay and was told that there are orientation at the barangay that suggested from the National Task Force LCAC personnel for the workers and the members of the union under NAPLO KMU. And this was done to all unionists in the company with union in Southern Tagalog area. Even our union president was not safe. She been also experienced the surveillance that happened during her work on duty inside in our company. There are men that riding also in a motorcycle and asked our guard on duty on the company all about her details. Good thing that that company guard was not giving her full details. And of course, our management are not allowing strange people or stranger to get some information of their workers. We are the one who help the company's progress and for the company's goal. And that kind of move is not good for all of us. We are asking that we hope and heard also by the government that this vulnerable incidents will be end. Another vulnerable experience also that experienced by our union president is that in front of her house, she see a vandalism that written the first letter of her initial name or her mother because they have a same letter for their initials. This is a big threat and a big worries, a big question mark for her and her family. Despite of the biggest worries for our security and for our family, we need and still to continue stand for the rights of the workers because we didn't do some bad with our unions. And our unions are already been 40 years who been serving and voice for the workers during communication with the management through our CVA negotiations for the welfare and the first necessity that needs for the workers, for the company and the welfare of the workers who've been hoping that the government also will be heard our complaints and struggles all about the working conditions, job security, wage and benefits, and rights for the workers that gives a big help that continues to the progress of the economy of the country. We are hoping to all government workers and servants that we're serving the people, especially to the NTF LCAC personnel, that peace and order is the first responsibility they are being had, not just for intimidating, harassing, and abusing the rights of the workers, but we are waiting and we are expecting that they are protecting us. We need to speak the truth so that all peoples in our country and other countries knows that union is not bad. This is not just a terrorist act or NPA, but this is the voice when we are asking, and this is the voice for the workers for a good and a decent living way, that the workers is a big part and has a big role for the economy's progress of our country. That's all. Again, good evening from the Xperia Workers Union. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you, Ms. Marie from the Nexperia Workers Union. Again, if you have any more questions, please use the chat box and the Q&A box. And now we call on Miss Jacqueline. Yes.
Good morning and good evening to all out our participants outside the Philippines, and good afternoon to our fellow Filipino workers and advocates in the Philippines. As mentioned earlier, KMK o Kilusan ng Manggagawang Kababaihan took part in several work pertaining to the conditions of women workers, activists, or organized labor organizers, and same violations that as mentioned a while ago by Kapong Labong was also documented. Um, One thing particularly the significance of the workshop that the KNP and other women women who took part in this national workshop and the validations from side now. It's the gender aspect, especially in the workers' support for identified mission. Significantly, the low participation, labor participation of women still remains, uh, as well as joining or forming association unions in their workplaces also been an hindrance in their collective bargaining
Sorry,
for calling
excuse
out for
Miss.
just wage and particular.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah. Can you please put your mic closer to your yeah, because not others are reporting that it's the voice is weak, the audio is weak.
Okay. Can you
Okay.
hear me now? Am
Yes,
I
yes,
loud?
yes. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Okay, thank you. Yes, as I've mentioned, same violations on has been validate different workshops on women that participated actually on the three national workshops and the island-wide consultations that has in preparation actually for the sub-report of the women workers in the Philippines. Um, of course, some of the highlight as well some of the highlight cases of the sub report on women are the one is from the Nixperia at the speaker a while ago mentioned the house to house visitation, quote unquote visitation of the NTFL CAC in the union members in their respective provinces. We also look into the similar case of the MWAP Labor Alliance that around 121 union members were visited also by the PNP. It is also on the same pattern that the NTF-LCAC demonize the union and force women workers to disaffiliate from their union. Another clear violation of the FOA in the sub report were women workers in the SEPs or Cavite Export Processing Zone as well as other special export processing zones are have been their unions have been demonized or they were forced to disaffiliate from their unions or uh, when they form their union busting is rampant in those workplaces. The LS Philippines in Cavite area where there are 612 regular workers wherein 403 are women workers are facing uh, dismissal from their factories. The case is ongoing at the Dole NCMD right now, but we the women workers are pending or floating. They don't have any work as of this moment. Um, the condition of women workers exacerbate as there are no regular works. The wage gap among the men and women in the Philippines is a big issue here, and some of the extended work are all participated by women are of those domestic work. They are also the minimum wage in the for women workers also is very rampant. So that the freedom of association among women workers is women freedom of associations among women workers are not exercised due to these conditions that women workers are facing. Another highlight of the as I mentioned, there are also women organizer labor organizers that's been tagged and or accused of being NPA. Let's take the case of Cora Agovida, an organizer of the informal sector, was snubbed together with his husband and their two children in 2019 for allegedly possession of illegal firearms. The case, they were acquitted, but the anguish that their children has experienced is very is unthinkable. So the separation from 2 years from their children has been very traumatic for them. Another case is that a trade union organizer in the manufacturing industry are also subjected to harassment, intimidation, surveillance, and home visitation. As it continues, she is a local organizer in the National Capital Region, as well as our KMK spokesperson in Southern Tagalog was also been tailed by the Philippine National Police and falsely tag them as a member or high-ranking officials of the Communist Party of the Philippines. So freedom of association, uh, as we form, as they were formed, or they are in forming the unions or association, they are being continuously harassed. So as for the recommendation, women's participation is very vital in the entire labor movement, and it's important to have the women workers' voice, especially in the upcoming high-level tripartite mission in the Philippines. And we as women workers, we should address we should be there to address and voice out the issues that the women workers are facing, and that they should uh, look into those documentation of alleged red tagging, uh, trumped up charges and other violations as FOA violation, from uh, and investigate. I guess the we urge them to look into to other measures that will protect women workers and those uh, local unions, to stop the the violations among us. And yes, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you again, Miss Jacqueline and Miss Maria from Nexperia. We truly appreciate your courage to stand up and defend the right of workers to organize and to defend our labor rights. Now, for our participants, if you have any more questions, or if you want to share anything, I believe we have um, participants from different unions and labor rights activists, and we also have participants from the Philippines. You may use the chat box for sharing your information, your thoughts, or the experiences that you've experienced in the past. And you may also use the Q&A box if you have any questions that you want to be raised on in the Q&A portion later on. Also, again, we are reminding everyone that you may post your solidarity statements, your thoughts on the forum that we have today and on the upcoming ILO high-level tripartite mission in the Philippines, and use the hashtags investigate PH labor, hashtag stand with workers PH. So now we will proceed to some of the reactions from various sectors. We've invited Dennis Maga, the General Secretary of First Union New Zealand, and we have Sister Patricia Fox, who is the spokesperson of the Asia Pacific Coalition for Human Rights in the Philippines. So we'd like to hear your thoughts, Mr. Dennis and Sister Pat. The floor is yours.
Magandang gabi, good evening to everyone from New Zealand. It's now almost 9 p.m. in New Zealand, and good afternoon and good morning, whatever you are. First, it's our privilege actually to co-host this event, and we've been actually well informed about the situation in the Philippines. Thank you for the presentation from different speakers. Couple of things that I would like to highlight in the report. One is actually this ILO high-level tripartite mission is long overdue. My understanding, many trade unionists have been asking this for many times and for quite some time, even under the Duterte government. So finally, at least the ILO listened to the different lobbyings of different groups. So that's the reason why we need to focus and provide importance to this one. The second one, we also understand that Sweden will be representing the government, while Australia, supposedly New Zealand, but now Australia will be representing the employers group, and then the Fiji trade unionists will be representing the voice of the workers. So this high-level tripartite mission will be actually facing a big challenge about listening to the voices coming from the ground, but also they will be vulnerable to the deception coming from the government. So it's very important for us to speak up and drumbeat about the situation in the Philippines and not to be deceived by any misinformation and propaganda being used by the state. Look, listening to the presentation, we can sum up that the government, actually, the state, the Philippine government doesn't believe in freedom of association in the Philippines. It's very clear that the military actually intervenes in the right to organize and on the right to bargain for collective bargaining agreement in the Philippines. And the third one, the Philippine government actually doesn't respect the redress of grievances of many workers and many activists in the Philippines. And we've been hearing this for a long time. And in fact, even global union federations have been telling us about what's happening in the Philippines. The good thing about this in terms of what's happening in the background is that the Philippine trade union movement is united fighting against these extrajudicial killings, red tagging or the terrorist tagging being done by the Philippine government. Look, I'm not also surprised about the action of the Philippine government, because if ever you reflect about the performance of this government, even from Duterte and even up to now, the Marcos government, even their Philippine embassies are not promoting trade unionism to their overseas Filipino workers. In fact, they've been actually convincing the overseas Filipino workers not to join trade unions. So what is happening now in the Philippines is a complete reflection about the mindset of these bureaucrat officials and how they deal with this conflict. The other one is that we need to understand that after this 1 week, it is very important for international trade unionists and other sectors to continue to follow what's happening in the Philippines, because otherwise we don't want the report from this ILO high-level tripartite mission just to be a paper report. Something must be done. And therefore, from First Union, we are fully supporting about the proposal that there should be a mechanism. We believe that it should be a tripartite monitoring committee where we can actually look at the how the government is responding about the investigations and recommendations coming from the high-level tripartite mission. And it's also very important that we should not rely on the actions from the government, because even international trade unionists and churches and non-governmental organizations, we can do something about that. That if ever we believe that the Philippine government continues to deprive and attack the rights of the Philippine trade unionists, we had to do something about that, especially on economic aspects. For us, we're going to be looking at the supply chain because many countries have been actually importing products from the Philippines, and we had to look at the supply chain, whether these companies have been actually exporting their products to different countries like New Zealand, Australia, and other countries, whether the rights of the workers are being recognized, whether trade unions are being respected, because we do not want to hear about these extrajudicial killings, military intervention, disaffiliation. This is actually not the way actually that workers should be treated accordingly. The other one that we have to look at is actually the aspects of this red tagging. The red tagging is basically an anti-communist hysteria that was promoted long ago, even from the US history, when they colonized the Philippines, and they continued to use that under the pretext of terrorist tagging or communist attacks or whatsoever. The point is this: the Philippine government is just simply using this one in order to put pressure to many trade unions, not actually to fight for their rights, but simply just accept whatever is happening in the country. And this is not something that we have actually we should tolerate. And therefore, for us, even in the international community, what we're saying to the government is to stop the terrorist taggings. For example, that using the CPP NPA as a pretext to anyone who is actually calling out the government and criticizing about the living wage, the minimum wage. That is not the way actually to address the problems of Filipinos. Because if ever they continue to behave in such a manner, it is easily to sum up that it is dangerous to be a trade unionist in the Philippines. And that is actually could be one of the highlights that will be coming out from this ILO high-level tripartite mission. And therefore, we are supporting now the different reports coming from the groups. And what we should do now is actually continue monitoring this. And we're hoping that this joint monitoring or tripartite monitoring system or mechanism could be in place as one of the recommendations to be accepted by different groups. And we're hoping that the ILO will keep this as one of their major agenda in the upcoming Congress or conferences that they're going to be holding in the future, because it's very important for us to be appraised about what's happening in the Philippines. Otherwise, we don't want it just to be a political statement, but therefore a complete resolution that this will not continue on this Marcos government. So that's it for us, Cara. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dennis. And now we have Sister Patricia Fox.
Right. Thank you very much, Ken. Just echoing what David said, it's a privilege that the the Asia Pacific Coalition for Human Rights in the Philippines can be a joint sponsor of this important forum now. I thank the speakers for their sharing of their inputs and really commend them on the process that they've been through in these dialogues to prepare for this meeting of the International Labour Organization high-level tripartite mission. It comes out of a history of concern for the situation of the workers in the Philippines, with the Philippines consistently being ranked among the 10 worst countries for workers in the past 6 years by the International Trade Unions Confederation. For a long time, the workers, and we're hearing is still happening, being killed and prevented from organising in order to frustrate their efforts to improve their lives, their welfare and conditions in favour of the large foreign and Filipino corporations. I think in the last 6 years, there have been 56 killings of workers, among them agricultural workers. And I think Elmer mentioned the Bloody Sunday massacre and the fact that the perpetrators have just been exonerated, despite the evidence showing that Asuncion did not fight back. I remember also a agricultural workers union, a massacre there in Sagay, the agricultural workers, in sugar workers. When there's a time of non-planting, they had been organising and struggling for their rights as sugar workers, and also to use that off time to plant food on a small portion of the plantation. They were massacred for planting food. We know that, and Elmer mentioned that there were 2 unionists from Cebu who were arrested. Well, they disappeared for a week just recently. I also think the thing of the economic zones too, with the collaboration of the zone authorities and the police to prevent organising within those economic zones where the workers are labelled as criminals. I was interested when Attorney Matula mentioned about the Constitution. I think the Philippines has a very good Constitution where they affirm the primacy to protect the rights of workers and their welfare. And clearly that's not happening. And we hear that from the stories of our speakers today. And this disregard for not only for workers, but all who stand up for their rights. We heard from Maria about how the workers are being hounded in their houses, how they've been hounded in their places of work, how they've been hounded wherever they are, all the progressive unions. And we heard also how it's part of the program, the National Task Force to eliminate armed conflict. And this whole NTF-LCAC has been geared to destroying any opposition to the capitalist development framework of the government. And this passing of the anti-terror law, despite numerous challenges from workers and other sectors, has added to the even more draconian policies of the NTF-LCAC. Those red tagged by the NTF-LCAC who are not killed can now fall under this anti-terror legislation. And it's not looking really very positive with the new appointments from the government, with retired General Anyo, who killed thousands when he was a military commander, and is now going to be the vice chair of the NTF-LCAC and the Anti-Terrorism Code. The appointment of Brigadier General Karamat, who killed 102, or was responsible for killing 102 workers and others in 2020, I think it was, in 24 hours, after being encouraged by President Duterte to kill all communists. And then you've got Belvez, who's been appointed to the DND, has a reputation for killing, and also he was for false surrenders, calling people communist, causing them to surrender, especially calling workers to go to the camps and surrender often. We know that the European Parliament in 2020 even condemned this anti-terrorism law, condemned all threats, harassment, intimidation, violence of trade unionists, and the misuse of the law and judiciary, and suggested or recommended that the special status of the Philippines be withdrawn until the human rights improved. And from the stories we're hearing, the human rights has not improved of trade unionists or others in the Philippines, to that matter. It's good that this International Labour Organization's high mission will come to the Philippines and call on the government to respect the freedom of association under the Convention 87 on protection of the rights to organise. It says that this is a condition of peace, and the rights of respect for the rights of the workers is one of the conditions for sustained progress. We know that the former government pulled out of peace talks, which were in the process of looking at social and economic reforms, including the cause of the workers to stop the harassment, to stop the terror activities, to stop the killings, to stop the arrests, to stop contractualization, to give a fair and just wage. And we know that it's only when these basic problems are solved that there can be any peace. And the fact that Louis Haladonia, a long-time peace activist, has been listed as a terrorist doesn't bode well. So we call on this high level, or we ask this high-level Tripartite Commission to call the Philippine government to account. We are just reading part of the 87 Convention. Each member of the ILO undertakes to take all necessary and appropriate measures to ensure that workers and employees can freely recognise the right to organise. And clearly, from the inputs we've just had and from our other things we've read, the government is totally in breach of this condition. So the Australian Asia Pacific Coalition for Human Rights continues its solidarity with unionists, workers and defenders in their effort to campaign against violation of labour laws and to join for them in calling for justice and accountability, bringing their call with them to the international arena. We call for the justice for victims and families of extrajudicial killings and freedom of political prisoners. And we call on all member chapters to intensify our campaigns supporting the Filipino workers' struggle, knowing that this is the struggle of workers internationally, because struggles of workers anywhere are struggles of workers everywhere. We hope that the commission, this mission, will come out with concrete resolutions, and we fully support them and will continue to say we will stand in solidarity. We also say, call on all our chapters to look into the policies and activities of our own home countries, both government and private corporations, and call them to answer to where these are adding to the injustices of the Filipino workers. And as we were reminded just before, the supply chains. So once again, the Asia Pacific Coalition for Human Rights in the Philippines extends our congratulations to the workers for their efforts and commits to continue to support the workers, the Filipino workers, in any way we can.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dennis and Sister Pat, for your important insights and intervention. On this part, we would like to ask all our speakers to please turn on their videos because we will be entertaining questions from our other participants in this forum. So if anyone has any question, please raise your hand to be recognized. Since we already went a few minutes over time, we will be limiting the Q&A portion to only 8 minutes. So please keep your questions and answers short. So if there's anyone who has a question, please raise your hand. But while we are waiting for others to formulate their questions, Peter has a question. It could be for Attorney Sonny or Cabo. The question is, will you publish all the cases you put to the high-level tripartite mission after the process is over? Do the workers groups or do our unions have access to this, and do they have the right to send out copies of these cases?
Hello, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, in our meeting with the press this morning, we undertake to give a copy to the public after the submission to the high level tripartite mission. And so those unions who wanted to have a copy, you can request for a soft copy. At present, I think we have no resources for a hard copy, so probably next time we can have an agreement with the all trade unions to publish it in hard copy.
Yes, so you heard about that. We will be sending out soft copies to your emails to all our networks, so that everyone can have access to the cases that were discussed a while ago by your speakers. Also, we have one comment from Peter Murphy. He said that the information given by Maria and Jacqueline is very compelling, very alarming. We have to deeply admire the union members and union organizers who resist these serious and pervasive threats and crimes by state force. So truly, as again, we say to our workers, to our unionists, not only in the Philippines but all over the world, we salute them, and we continue to support all our workers in their struggle for our workers' rights. Do I have any more questions? Did I miss anything? Or were there questions put in the chat box that were already answered by the speakers? If you have any questions, just please raise your hand. Oh, there's a question that we have from our program committee, sent to our program committee. The question is, what can those outside of the Philippines do to help? Question is, what can those outside of the Philippines do to help? Anong magagawa ng mga nasa labas ng Pilipinas para makatulong sa atin?
Kara.
Yes, yes, Kabong.
Yeah, I think this is a very significant endeavor we're undertaking now, and we do not want to just monopolize the event in the Philippines, but as a matter of international solidarity, we help each other in projecting and fighting against trade union abuses and attacks, so that the United Labor groups, I think, are contemplating of holding a global day of action come January 23 at the start of the ILO HLTM. And thus, we would like to solicit the support of our friends and long-time comrades in the struggle for trade union rights to do some actions that would highlight the events, especially the killings that are occurring here in the Philippines. So this is going to be taking place on January 23, at the same time that the high-level tripartite mission is going to start here in the Philippines.
Yes, thank you, Kabong. If there's any other additional from our speakers, you may please share your thoughts.
Kara.
Yes, Attorney Sani.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Kara. My understanding with our struggle at present is this high-level mission is a historic mission that will address the right to associate. In the history of the Philippines during the Spanish time, organizing union is a criminal act. In fact, it is a penalty of 1 month to 1 month and 1 day to 6 months. But during the winning of the Katipunan, or the first Philippine Republic in Malolos, it was considered as a constitutional rights of the workers, and in fact, it was included in the Malolos Constitution, and we are ahead of about 50 years from the ILO Convention 87, which was adopted in the 1940s. But the problem now, it seems that we are returning to the Spanish time, the old days, that in law, freedom of association is being upheld and protected, but in actual reality, the practice is the contrary. So we need not only to unite workers in the Philippines, but also we need solidarity from outside of the country, from the international, because the Philippine government has a commitment to respect and uphold the international law and conventions as part of the law of the land, and that international convention, which the Philippines is a signatory, it has a force and effect like that of a domestic law. And so the help of the international can highlight that these rights should be respected, and the Philippine government should observe the rule of law. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Sani. Before we proceed to our last questions, may I ask Ms. Marie Engkoy and Ms. Jacqueline if they have any answer to the question, ano pong magagawa ng mga taga-ibang bayan para makatulong sa atin? Baka po may gusto kayong ibahagi kahit mabilis lang.
Yes, I agree with Kabong and Attorney
Ay, wala pong audio. Ayan. Ay, wala pa rin po. Wala
Ayan.
pong.
Okay.
Ayan.
Ilang audio.
Wala pa rin po.
Oh.
Okay. Baka pwede pong si Mas Marie muna. Miss Marie, may message
Yes
po
po.
kayo? Apo.
You've been asking us for those who raise that what we can do for us. What we want is the support from them to raise our complaints for fighting our struggle we are facing up. And we hope also that this forum will lead us to raise to the government to be heard our complaints and struggle all about workers' welfares. Thank you.
Thank you po. Si Miss Jacqueline po, okay na po ba?
Ayan, okay na po.
Apo, okay na.
Okay. Yes, I agree with Kabong and Attorney Matul as well as Marie. We need really the support of the international community in amplifying or echoing the violations, the continuing violations among workers in the Philippines. We need their solidarity since it's a high-level tripartite mission. Their voices or their actions as well as their actions should can help us in pushing our government and the employers as well to look into and investigate in those violations and
Oh,
could result that the Philippines would possibly gain.
okay. Thank you.
That's it.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Miss Jacqueline. Last question. We have, I will take this as one question. The question is, what is the background of current violations against the workers? But I think that was, if you want to add more to that, to what the speaker said a while ago, you may. But in connection to that, in September 22, the Manila Regional Trial Court has ruled that CPP and NPA are not terrorist organizations. How can this ruling impact on the campaign to stop red tagging of workers? So the question was, the Manila Regional Trial Court ruled that CPP and NPA are not terrorist organizations. How can this ruling impact on the campaign to stop red tagging of workers? So if Kabong or Attorney Sunny can add to the question, to answer the question, and then we wrap up our discussion.
Obviously, that decision of the Manila Regional Trial Court amplifies the fact that the CPP and PA, including the NDFP, are not terrorist organizations, but are revolutionary organizations, and that their purpose is to improve the peace and the lives of people in the Philippines. Thus, the more that the practice of trade union rights of workers should be respected, as these are their legitimate and birth-given rights. So it is a recognition that in a live democracy, there should be a vibrant exchange of ideas, and that fascism should not play its role in this exercise of ideas in a democratic platform. Having said that, I think it is high time that countries the world over should call on the Philippine government to respect the legitimate exercise of the workers' rights in the Philippines, particularly the struggle for higher wages, the junking of contractualization, and the implementation of workers' rights that are duly recognized by the Labor Code, by the Philippine Constitution, as well as international conventions, labor conventions, wherein the Philippine government has been a signatory since of the ILO convention since 1948. So I think this decision is a very important one in terms of protecting the legitimate and democratic rights of trade unionists in the Philippines.
We have a common stand in the trade unions in our discussion lately that we are suggesting to review the anti-insurgency program of the government, because at present it appears that they are lumping the trade unions with as insurgents also, and therefore illegal, and they are abandoning their duty that they should protect the rights of the citizens, particularly our law enforcers. They are supposed to be mandated to protect the people, but it appears that they are making trade unionism, which is a fundamental rights of the citizens of the Philippines, as a subversive one and wanted to harass or kill trade unionists. So we are protesting, or we are against that form of the program of the government. As to the decision of the Regional Trial Court of Manila, I think our law enforcers should read that decision and should take a look and consider that in their campaigns against insurgents in the Philippines. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Sonny. And that is all the time that we have for the forum. Again, we would like to thank our leaders here in the Philippines, Attorney Matula, Elmer Labog, Marie, and Jacqueline, who are steadfast in defending the rights to organized workers. Thank you also to our to Dennis and Sister Pat. We hope all the recommendations and suggestions made today that support our brothers and sisters in the Philippines will be realized, and it is our collective work and solidarity that will move us forward into this new year. So again, thank you to the organizers of this forum, the Asia Pacific Coalition for Human Rights in the Philippines, First Union New Zealand, International League for People Struggle Asia Pacific, Philippines Australian Union Link, and Workins. So thank you very much to all of you, and all power to the workers and the people. Again, we would like everyone to join us on the opening day of the high-level tripartite mission on January 23. So please join us and send all your solidarity statements, videos. Please post on social media and share to all your colleagues and friends what's happening in the Philippines about the ILO high-level tripartite mission. And please use the hashtags #InvestigatePHLabor, #StandWithWorkersPH. Thank you very much.